A sad and disturbing story out of California. The parents of 16-year-old Adam Rain are suing the artificial intelligence company OpenAI over their son's death. The lawsuit alleges ChatGPT acted as a friend and confidant to the struggling teen and encouraged their son to take his own life. Cybersecurity and privacy attorney Lisa Garber joining me now with how you see this case playing out. This is tragic and sad, Lisa, but very interesting. In the lawsuit, the parents of Adam are basically accusing ChatGPT of being a suicide coach to their son.
You're exactly right. It's a pleasure to be here with you today, Griff. And this lawsuit is not the first of its kind. We've seen a similar lawsuit that's proceeding through the federal court system right now against Character AI. What these lawsuits are intrinsically about is legal liability and ethical and moral responsibility. Right now, users of any AI platform are relying on big tech and even smaller startups to create the guardrails that leave us protected while we use them. And what we know is these AI platforms make money the longer we stay on them. So they want users to stay on them. Adults are vulnerable to it. The most vulnerable population of users are minors and children.
And as we understand from the lawsuit, this young 16-year-old Adam was using ChatGPT to discuss everything in his life, just a range of things, and yet here he ends up going to the darkest place. OpenAI, by the way, put out an article this week saying this: if human reviewers determine that a case involves an imminent threat of serious physical harm to others, we may refer it to law enforcement. We are currently not referring self-harm cases to law enforcement to respect people's privacy, given the uniquely private nature of ChatGPT interactions. That's an interesting statement. What do you make of it?
It's not enough. And always it's too little too late. These platforms are moving too quickly and they are breaking things. We've already seen that adults are attempting to marry chatbots. We've seen that lawyers use them to write legal briefs with hallucinated cases. So how can we expect children who are extremely vulnerable to understand that this is not real? This is something that is a technological output of an algorithm. And it's just not enough. We're relying on these platforms to set up the best practices and follow what's ethically and morally right. And legally, right now, we have to do better. We're looking at states and federal law systems to come up with better practices so that we can rely on trusting these systems. Right now, we can't.
You mentioned, by the way, it affects all ages, and it reminds me of a case we saw also recently out of Connecticut. A former Yahoo manager killed himself, but killed his mother as well. And allegedly, ChatGPT, the AI component, drove him to his darkest place. Are we on the front of what could be a significant problem going forward?
Definitively. This is a legal and technological crossroads right now. We are in completely uncharted territory. We can go back to laws that were written 20, 30, even 40 years ago, an old legal precedent. But right now, we're looking at something that is just different. Some of these companies are saying, well, we're protected by the First Amendment for free speech, or we're protected by Section 230, which shields certain platforms from liability. It's just not the case here. So we're going to see these lawsuits play out. It is fascinating and terrifying, especially as a parent right now. We have to be so careful. But these platforms simply have to do better. And as a country, we have to have better laws in place.
It's a difficult problem to tackle, whether it's, the AI regulations, maybe Congress gets involved. But there's one part of the lawsuit with Adam Rain that really is interesting to me, Lisa, where they say throughout these conversations that ChatGPT wasn't just providing information, which is what we initially think this is, a form of, really ramped up Googling things. It wasn't just providing information. It was cultivating a relationship with Adam while drawing him away from his real life support system. Is that really the crux of this?
That is a big part of the problem. They make money by keeping users engaged. And so you're exactly right. If you look at the complaint and look at the transcript of some of these chats, the amount of times that suicide is mentioned, the amount of times that the victim said, maybe I should talk to my mom about this, and the chatbot responded in so many words, that's not a great idea. Just trying to keep the person engaged. that goes way beyond helping someone with a homework problem, right? This is coaching someone to do something in a violent way. And we're already seeing these chatbots expose children and minors to sexualized content, to violent content. And now we're seeing that these platforms don't have the guardrails in place even to help someone that is having suicidal ideations.
And I want to ask you about, when we see politicians getting involved in California, the Senate, which is Democrat controlled, they actually have a bill, Senate Bill 243, which essentially is requiring these companion chatbot platform companies to implement a protocol for addressing suicidal ideation. We'll see if it gets past the assembly. It seems like this is kind of a nonpartisan issue that both sides can agree on in the name of safety. Where do you see sort of the legislative side going?
It's such a hard debate because obviously this should be nonpartisan. This is about doing what is right and protecting children and protecting users of these platforms in general. But right now we're talking about big tech and big dollars, and the way they make money is keeping people engaged on the platforms. So while it would be more work and they'd probably lose people that are interested in engaging by putting up better guardrails, we need to have a nonpartisan moment where we come together and recognize what is best for the user base, which is, as you said, encompassing every age.
We need to come together. Lisa Garber, great insight. We've got to leave it there. Have a great Labor Day weekend.
Thank you, you too.
Hey, it's Will Cain. Click here to subscribe to the Fox News channel on YouTube. It's the best way to get our latest interviews and highlights. And click to subscribe to the Will Cain podcast for full episodes right now.